Hi, my name is Dave, and today I'm going to show you this beautiful 3-inch Alvan Clark Corporation refractor from the early 1900s. Beautiful little telescope. It's got superb optics. I compared this with the Takahashi, and it's just as good, perhaps even a little bit better than a Takahashi 3-inch FC76. So anyway, it's a very, very good telescope. The optics are superb. And I was lucky to get this. It's got a full set of eyepieces, it's got the box, and it's got the mount, except for this being clearly an ad hoc kind of an addition here. Not sure if this was done by the original owner or maybe part of it was broken. This is certainly not original. This part here doesn't belong with the rest of the scope. So anyway, I'm going to attempt to either locate replacement parts for that. Almost certainly that won't happen, so I'm almost certainly going to have to replicate those, and I'm actually looking forward to that. That's fun for me. I love to do that kind of thing. So I will enjoy that, and I will share all of my progress, all of my steps along the way as I attempt to restore this to its more or less original condition. The mount head itself here was terribly rusty, and I have a low tolerance for any kind of rust, so I had to get rid of that, repainted it, tried to do the best I could to make it as original as possible. And the legs are original. Anyhow, I'll share with you exactly how it all goes, show you the step-by-step process. Dan Schechter was kind enough to loan me these original Alvan Clark parts that should match my mount perfectly. Here's a comparison of the parts that Dan was willing to loan me. These are all original Alvan Clark, and these are my replica parts. All of these parts were made in my shop, and this was also made, and I was able to replicate these parts pretty closely thanks to the help of Dan. This part, by the way, this is original. It came with my original mount. And this is a 1/2 16 thread. Oddly enough, 1/2 16 here may not work with 1/2 16 here. The threads are just different enough that these parts, although they're both original Alvan Clark, may or may not work together. The threads were cut just slightly differently. This one, it's a little bit loose. You probably can't tell that. This one is pretty tight. Barely goes on there. So the threads are just different enough that you can tell they were clearly handmade. The original Alvan Clark seems to have just a slightly bigger diameter. This part in particular is interesting. I'm calling this a diver's helmet. It has a similarity to a deep sea diver's helmet. This part is supposed to be 1/2 16, but look at that. This won't even go on there. This is an honest to goodness 1/2 16. It's made with modern technology, modern die, tap and die type stuff. This stuff is custom made, one of type stuff. The diameter here is this. I had to turn this down. This is nominally 3/4 of an inch, but I don't know if you can see it, but this has been, I had to taper this slightly. I had to cut this down by a few thousandths, maybe a total of 10 thousandths by the time you go from here to here. So it doesn't quite, it's not quite 3/4 of an inch. It's nominally 3/4 of an inch. By the way, these are all 16 threads. 1/2 16. This is a 3/4 16, which is quite quite rare. The 1/2 16, the 3/4 16 isn't as rare as the 1/2 16. Then it's just a guess on my part that, you know, having used a lathe with change gears, it's much more convenient to just cut everything the same. You'll notice this doesn't work. That's a real honest to goodness. What I made is a real honest to goodness 3/4 16. This is not quite the same. It was made as a one-off. This is the one I made using a modern tap and die. It'll probably go on there quite loose. It actually is not that bad. It works pretty well, but it's just slightly different. Just enough different. You know, maybe at most 10 thousandths difference. The threads are right, but the pitch is right, but the diameter is just slightly different. Interesting little inconsistencies and idiosyncrasies here and there. Let's see, I'll go ahead and put this back together. I wanted to show you how these bearings are made, though, while I've got this apart. I want to show you this. Alvan Clark, to manage friction, they made this with a square washer to be sure that when you adjusted this nut, the nut was going to stay with the shaft and maintain the same friction. Well, I used a bronze bearing, which has considerably less friction, and I don't need to do that. So I did not need to do that with that. Same thing here, although I duplicated the little nut in there, the little lock nut. I didn't actually have to cut a groove in that. Doesn't need it. And let me pull this apart and show you how this is made. These are standard bearings, straight from the hardware store. 3/4 inch bronze bearings. Nice bearings. Fit beautifully to this shaft. The shaft I had to, of course, turn this down here, but this part that's just stock, straight from the manufacturer. And I had to cut these threads, of course. This part on the Alvan Clark, this bearing is a steel against a tapered shaft, a tapered socket on the inside. And in my case, I just cut a taper on a bronze bearing to fit. And this is the original Alvan Clark with taper built in. And the same applies here. Here you've got steel against steel. So you've got a higher coefficient of friction than in my simulacrum. Looks like it, not quite the same. So in mine, with the bronze bearings, I have less friction here than in the Alvan Clark. You could say it's an improvement. I don't consider it to be really an improvement because you can't improve the original. But by the same token, it's modern technology. So I'm using modern technology as a substitute. And I'll show you in the video. It's working just fine. Okay, here it is. This is the finished product. This is all my parts, either parts that I bought that came with the scope that are original, or parts that I made. I'll show you some close-ups of all these parts. I did want to show you that it is working as it should. In other words, this maintains the proper amount of friction here. This doesn't have a tendency to loosen up too much. And similarly here, you can see this turns as it should, so it maintains the same friction on the right ascension. This is very much like a Losmandy, where they manage the friction here so that the friction is greater between this and its shaft, its matching shaft, than between this and the mount. So that then it has a tendency to want to turn, and this wants to turn here. So I have pretty good management of the friction here. It's functioning pretty much as the original mount would have functioned. Okay, let me show you how this is intended to be used in Altaz mode. I have to first of all loosen these two wing nuts, and then this comes all the way up like that. Oops, I think I better do that first. Now all the way up. Okay, now as you can see, this can be used Altaz style, like so. That's the way Lundin would have intended for it to be convertible to use like that. And it's actually very nice. It's a little bit low, but it would work just fine. And I'm sure that you could easily adjust to that. There you go. This is the terrestrial eyepiece. It's well balanced. And it works just great like that. So that would be just terrific for use in Altaz mode. Let's convert it back now. Okay, now it's more, and of course you'd have to set this for your latitude. Probably like that would be about right. Now you have it in equatorial mode, so use it so, etc. It's a beautiful little telescope. I hope you've enjoyed my tour of this beautiful Clark Corporation 3-inch refractor. Thank you.